Hi folks, I'm really excited about this next module. In this module, what we're going to do is we're going to provide an understanding of how to support students with disabilities and other diverse learning needs in social studies and science. As you might know from some of the readings, this is an area where I've spent a lot of time in helping schools and districts understand how to provide effective STEM-based or science, technology, engineering, math-based sort of environments for all students, but specifically for students with disabilities. How do we design those? I think science and social studies is an area where students with disabilities can actually thrive and actually demonstrate their understanding as well as to advance other people's understanding in these areas. So what can you expect in this module? Well, as in any module, we're going to provide you a critical kind of overview of the issues associated with science and social studies overall, especially for students with disabilities and other diverse learning needs. You can also learn specific practices that can be done to support learning for students with disabilities and other diverse learning needs in these environments. And finally, we want to overall develop your understanding of the need in this area. We want to develop your problem-solving abilities. We want to give you the ability to implement effective practices within both science and social studies environments. So as you consider all the things you're going through, we want you to continually think about, okay, how does this generalize to where I am as a teacher, or in my school, or even my own life experience? We want you to be able to generalize that, but also then be able to provide specific practices that you can do in your environment. A number of things are going to help you do this. The readings this week are going to give you critical issues that students deal with disabilities, as well as specific practices that you can use in your learning environment. The videos and the assignments that are being used in the module are also going to provide a contextualized understanding. The videos are going to provide you a contextualized understanding of what this looks like in the environment and the specific practices that can be used. And the assignments are going to give you a hands-on sort of critical view of how you can actually support learning in your science and social studies environments. Let's first talk about some of the issues associated with science and social studies. We know that students with disabilities and other diverse learning needs have a number of issues that make science and social studies so difficult. One of the first things is the accessibility of the textbook. We know many of these classrooms still rely heavily on textbook content. And these textbooks, by and large, may not be that accessible for students that have difficulty in reading and in processing information that's text-based. And even when they are provided with a digital text, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all that usable in their understanding of the content and accessible for them to read. So we know this is a critical issue. We also know that the vocabulary and concepts that are being taught in these classes are often abstract. And this provides a great deal of difficulty, that the students may not even have the background knowledge to scaffold onto to gain these new understandings. And the abstractness of the concepts and the vocabulary makes it extremely difficult for them to build upon what they already know. That there's real comprehension and organizational needs as they move in both science and social studies. For instance, in science, the scientific method is very much an organized method. The scientific process is very organized. And in social studies, understanding things in a fluid sort of timeline, very much organized. And drawing connections among those things from a comprehension stance is a difficult thing for students with disabilities. Text is complex. That we are definitely, in science and social studies, we are in a learning through reading. Reading to learn sort of mentality, that we are completely reliant on text and overly reliant on text in the learning process. And so if a student has difficulty reading, they're going to have a very difficult time in science and social studies. So we have to design and put strategies and practices in place that support them in that process. That there's a large emphasis in science specifically on the scientific method and the ability to problem solve. And really, problem solving comes into play in both these things. And that is a difficult thing for certain students with disabilities and specific diverse learning needs. And what's The ironic here in my mind is that these environments, by and large, are very traditional. That both science and social studies environments tend to be very using traditional instructional routines and tend to be traditional overall and rely on things such as fact-based learning. Where I see these environments is that these environments can be very, very interactive for students and very um, and very engaging for students. But if they're over reliant on different traditional instructional routines and environments, they could be real difficult for students with disabilities to interact and engage in the learning process. So overall, what we want you to take away here is think about how you can design and implement specific practices and strategies in your environments, and then how you can actually measure whether they're actually working to support learning in both science and social studies. I think this is going to be a great module. I think you're really going to gain a lot from it. I look forward to you going through it, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we hope you do.